Pius, Mr. Hefner, Mr. Hefner, Ms. Pius. Have you ever wondered if, at the size of the monster you created, and looked back on it and wondered?
Oh yes, sure.
Could ever have gotten out of hand? And
well, sometimes it does. But, yeah, it remains a little unreal. I think when you enjoy what you're doing, and when the success kind of comes day by day, you're never really able to fully, appreciate it. But yeah, it remains a little unreal for me.
Yeah. You never decided at a certain day to just give it all up and go into a monastery or anything, have you?
Not yet.
No? No? Just checking. If that feeling comes over you during the show, we'll send for some brochures for you or something. How did you, at the beginning, did you visualize the size that you wanted the success you have to be? Did you know where you wanted it to go and how far you wanted it to stop, or did you just decide to start the snowball rolling and see where?
No, in no way. When the magazine began, as you mentioned a minute ago, I had no money, and I had worked for Esquire briefly, and I really simply hoped to put together a magazine because I was a magazine guy and enjoyed editing, and hoped to put together a magazine that I could continue to work on, and I had no notion when it began that it was going to in any way grow into the thing that it has.
Yeah. Do you know now who all reads Playboy?
Well, you mean statistically? Or,
yeah, what groups of people read Playboy?
For advertising purposes, all magazines, or most of the major magazines, analyze their audience, so we have a good notion as to who they are. They're mostly college audience and young professional, average age 29, which for a magazine generally is young. About half of them married and half of them single. Most of the marrieds are newly married. Upper income professional.
Yeah. I heard somewhere that you have the most phenomenal newsstand sale of any magazine. Is that right?
Yes, I think so. Possible exception might be TV Guide. For any magazine, well, TV Guide is kind of a special kind of area of its own. But even outselling such really vast circulation magazines as Reader's Digest in terms of single copy sale.
Yeah. Why is that important? Why is it good to have a big newsstand sale as opposed to?
Well, that's where the money is.
Is that it?
Yeah, one of the problems, as I assume most of your audience knows, the magazine industry in general, particularly since television, has had a lot of problems. And within the last few days, Saturday Evening Post has gone out of business.
Yes, and the man I saw interviewed predicted that other magazines would too.
Well, a number of other major magazines in the last few years have, and I suspect others will follow. I think that's because TV has taken over many of the areas that general interest magazines have handled in the past, so that the future really is in specialized books that reach a particular market. And the idea of what a specialized magazine is, I think, has changed a good deal. When Playboy began, the limit in terms of circulation of a specialized magazine was a few 100,000. Now it's obvious it's possible today to put out a book, well, Playboy as an example, which obviously is aimed at a very specific audience and doing a particular kind of job, and have a circulation of many millions.
Right. What kind of women, this is a strange way to phrase it, do women read Playboy magazine?
Yes, yes, a surprisingly large number. Of our total readership, 1 out of every 4 is a woman. And I think the major reason for that is because the things that make the magazine popular, the girls are the centerfold, et cetera, the things that are most talked about, most publicized. But the general editorial attitude and the fiction and the humor are things that appeal to both men and women of a particular point of view. And I think that what has made Playboy successful is the fact that it came along at a time in which much of magazine publishing was in older hands. And there is this generation gap that we've heard a good deal about, and I think that Playboy was the first one to speak with a voice that a great many people were looking for, and that both young men and women could identify with.
Sometimes I wonder if the magazine won't eventually get to a point where you could actually forget about the centerfold and all that stuff. There'd probably be an outcry.
I hope not.
But I mean, you'd be amazed how many people, when they first see their first issue of the magazine, don't realize how many respectable authors are represented in there and how good those interviews are that you have with people who are those long interviews.
Well, Esquire went through a period, in the 30s and the early 40s. Esquire had the petty girls and the cartoons, and then for whatever reason, whether they became self-conscious about it or, whatever the reason, they changed the book. And various people have asked me whether, with the success of Playboy, whether we are going to consciously change the concept of the magazine later, whether we need the girls. And it's never going to happen because for me, and that's really where Playboy is at, for me the inconsistency has always been in our society that suggested that a healthy interest in beautiful women was somehow inconsistent with a healthy intellectual interest. And to me, a complete man is both. And Playboy is both because Playboy is entertainment for the complete man.
What is it about you and ministers and clerics and priests, every time one opens Playboy magazine, there's some kind of debate going on in the letters section about some theological topic or other, and it's amazing how many ministers, people write in and say they think the magazine is important for the views it expresses and so on.
We've even had to develop a special clerical rate because of the interest from
Is that
clergy.
right?
Yeah.
I
can imagine that with Playboy. Yeah.
I picture a cleric somewhere in his study prizing the staples out of the... putting them out. I guess...
Tell me about your church, Dick.
I'm not affiliated with any particular church in my imagination there.
I was going to join it, but it sounded pretty good.
But there's quite a lot of interest in the magazine in those circles, isn't there?
Well, with the Playboy philosophy, the editorial series that we started several years ago, we got more involved in a number of the social, sexual issues of the day, and this prompted a reaction, response, and interest from the clergy. And my original frame of reference was really that secular society was kind of on one side of the issue, and the clergy were on the other, which turns out not to be true. There is, which is kind of evident now with the ecumenical council and the rest of it, there's a sexual and a social revolution taking place inside organized religion today too, so they're very much concerned and interested. And I think they're kind of turned to Playboy sometimes because they're concerned with the fact that they lost communication with the younger people and are looking for ways to bridge that gap.
Right. Well, I didn't ask you what brings you to from the windy city to the dingy city, you might say. Your air is still better than ours. I'll have to hand you that.
Toss up. Well, we've got a new. I'm hosting a new TV show called Playboy After Dark, late night variety show.
Whew. It doesn't start here in a few days, does it?
Yes. Son of a gun, it does.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. And
not in this time slot, I assume.
No, it's not.
I assume you would have told me before. After dark, yes.
Yes, and it's a late night variety show with a little different kind of party format, like a party in my apartment, and we're hosting it, and I'm out publicizing it.
I see. I had Norman Mailer here one day, and I was at your place the first time I played Mr. Kelly's in Chicago, and I've always wanted to see it. And I've mentioned this on the air before, but there had been an article in Playboy about the house, and the readers had all wanted to see inside it and all, and so you did about 6 or 8 pages of color pictures on the house, and there was a picture of the famous pool, and someone had posed a lot of unclad ladies around the pool for photogenic purposes, I assume, and I assumed that that's the way it always was. And you said I could come and go at the house, so I came over, I think 15 days in a row, and I would always check the pool.
First thing.
Yes, and the water temperature was always the same, and there was never anybody, there was not a single unclad torso there. 15 days in a row. On the 16th day, however, my luck changed, and I mentioned this before. I went down to the pool, and there I could hear the waterfall running, and I went down, and there was a nude in the pool, and it was Norman Mailer. Isn't that... Now, Mailer was on the show, and I told him that story, and he denied having been nude.
Yes.
And it was rather a tense moment here. He sat there, and he said he wasn't. And the only way I could think of out of it was to say, well, do you realize how much talent it takes to appear nude when you're not? Later, he asked what kind of a person would think a person was nude who wasn't. And, I don't know who won this, if in fact it's a debate.
He mentioned the debate to me afterwards.
Yes, it's one of the great ones in our society. We'll be back. I foolishly promised our audience that they could have some questions. So now they can. Yes, ma'am.
From what I've read of your personal philosophy, there seems to be an evident contradiction between that and that of the Playboy Advisor. I mean, you seem to advocate chastity in the Playboy Advisor very often. And according to your personal philosophy, that seems to be a great contradiction. Is that so?
It's an interesting question.
Well, I don't think there's any inconsistency. I think that, the distinction might be that the philosophy is necessarily a general approach to life, and the answers in the advisor are predicated on particular problems that may have, sometimes people assume from the philosophy that we're, a good deal more libertine than we really are, and it's one of the reasons for writing the editorials. It's not that we're, immoral. It's that we think that morality ought to be predicated on some common sense considerations where sex is concerned.
You are not the Playboy advisor. I suppose some people have wondered if you are.
That's true. I'm not. I'm really Ann Landers.
You heard it here, folks. Yes, someone else was. Look. The question was, if you couldn't hear at home, what was the question? Why isn't little Annie Fanny in every month?
Every month.
And her husband gets the magazine, and she likes the interviews. That's a
Right.
three-part question.
Well, the interviews are, I think, just about as popular as the Playmate these days. Little Annie Fanny would be in every month, except that it is so complicated with the three-dimensional, four-color process artwork that they use on it that it's just not possible to turn them out any more often. And every time they complete a feature, we run it. So we run as many as we can.
There you are, little Annie Fanny fans.
Wherever you are.
Is there someone on the other side? Oh, here's a gentleman.
Yes, could you tell me, in your line of work, it would seem to be very difficult to separate the business from the pleasure.
He must be
Are you
talking
able
to you
to
and not
separate
me.
out your private life from a business sort of life?
Well, I've never really tried. Because indeed, so much of Playboy, the magazine, the clubs, the various things that we're involved in really are the avocations and the entertainment of other people. So the line is indeed a very vague one, and we don't make any great attempt to separate the two. I enjoy my work, so it all fits in together.
It's funny, I've been there twice, and I've never seen you have any private life. I mean, you seem to constantly
That's
work.
because my private life is private.
Apparently. I don't know
It's the
anybody
other part of the house
who
that-
works more hours than you. Yeah, a gentleman is bursting one seam.
Mr. Hefner, are you contemplating marriage?
Not in the immediate future.
Why not?
Well,
Look
it's
for the
been
answer.
suggested, yes, in the
Playboy
advisor next
advisor.
month. No, it's been suggested that if I did, that the empire might crumble. But certainly, if I met the right girl and was so inclined, I would. I wouldn't take that into consideration. But at the present time, I think it is safe to say that I'm enjoying my bachelor existence.
There's a gentleman all the way in the back. I assume a gentleman.
Yes. Hi. Earlier in the show, Ambassador Linowitz said that he saw a great deal of ability in a man who made his own empire, so to speak, and he thought that this type of individual could offer a great deal to government service. And I was wondering what type of application your line of work would have, perhaps, in our foreign policy program, for example.
In case anyone missed that, the question was, how would Mr. Hefner's activities contribute to the body politic?
I think you
Well,
you rephrased that a little bit.
We'd have something to trade.
Well, I think that the basic things that Playboy believes in would probably help us a good deal on the international front, putting a little more emphasis on the good life and a little less on hostility and war. As a matter of fact, on a serious note, I really feel that as the various countries are able to move into, as Russia has before we began having the more recent difficulties, as they begin moving into a middle-class society and enjoying some of the benefits of the good life, so-called, it takes a lot of tensions away from the world, and that may be one of the solutions to the problems that exist internationally.
we have almost no time left. It's good to see you here. There
My
are rumors
pleasure.
that you almost never come out of that house.
You know why.
And that you are there all the time, living in one change of pajamas after another. He works in pajamas, and yes, those are the greatest looking pajamas I've ever seen in my life. They're better. I don't have a suit that looks as good as those pajamas. Do you have pajamas on under that suit?
This is actually a pair of pajamas. I've had it cut and it's perfect.